Hey everybody, it's Bart with eXtremePara.com. Today in this video we're going to show you how to make a cobra bracelet using our mini jig setup. So that being said, you're going to need a few things to get started. First will be the eXtremePara mini jig. You're going to need a pair of cutters. This is a pair of cutters I get from Harbor Freight for just a couple dollars. I like them because they really are good at cutting cord. You're going to need a lighter. Now this is a turbo flame. This is the type of lighter that is supposedly windless. You can use it in all kinds of situations. Though I don't recommend these for people who are really new. You can graduate up to these. This lighter gets very hot. 2,500 degrees Celsius at the tip. It also burns cord really fast. So you have to have some expertise when you use it. If you're new to paracording, you should use just like a regular Bic type lighter. One like this. These they don't have a really hot flame, so it takes a little longer, but in the beginning you need that time to really learn what you're doing, so I really recommend using those. You're also going to need a buckle. In this case we're going to use a 1/2 inch curved buckle. You notice there's the curve. It's half inch wide between the slots. This is a really good buckle to use for most bracelets. And you're also going to need some cord. Now in this case we're going to build a buckle or a bracelet that is 9 inches long, right? So I have my jig set at 9 inches, right? Here's my buckle that I'm going to use to make it. Now when making a bracelet, you need basically 1 foot of cord overall for every inch of bracelet. So in this case we've got a 9-inch bracelet, so we need 9 feet of cord total. Now we're going to make a 2-color bracelet, so in theory I need 4.5 feet of each color. Now this cord is actually already pre-cut to 5 feet, so I won't need to cut it. If you were dealing with like a hank of rope, you would get out your rope like so, take out your rope, pull out 5 feet of each color, or 4.5, and measure it out and cut it. The next thing we have to do is we have to join these 2 pieces of rope together. So the way I do that is I typically fuse them together by melting the ends and then touching them together. And the way I'll do that is I'll hold the 2 cords close together like I have here. I'll take my lighter and then I'll just put it right up against the edge and get them going until I see it start to melt. Once I see it start to smoke and melt, take the flame away and I will just push them together like so. Being careful not to touch the melted nylon because that'll burn your skin. And there you go, it's all done. Alright, so the next part is we have to take this, lace it into our buckle, and then we can start. So what we do is we take one end of our buckle, the part that's going to go onto the buckle that's closest to us. In this case I take the female end and I'm going to make a lark's head in the end of it. Now what I do is I form a loop. If you notice I move the seam down a little bit, and I'll explain why I do that in a minute, but you make a loop with one side. You pass from what would be the outside of the buckle towards the inside of the buckle, right? Pass through with the loop, and then take our working ends and pass them through the loop, like so, right? And we give them a little tug, putting the seam about 1/2 inch away or so from the buckle, like so. Now you ask, why do we do that? Well, some people will put that seam right here in the lark's head, right in that loop. Well, because that's exposed, that becomes a wear point, and eventually you'll wear through this joint and then the bracelet will come apart. So by doing this, we're actually going to put the seam inside the cobra stitch, and even if it were to come apart, it would never split. The bracelet wouldn't come apart because of it. So this is a good way to always do your seam in the middle like that. And like I said, you want it about 1/2 inch from the lark's head. It's maybe a little bit more than 1/2 inch, but that's good. Then I'm going to lace that into my buckle, like that. And then what I'm going to do is, I got the white on the left and the pink on the right. So I'm going to let them fall on each side. I'm going to take my other buckle piece. And I'm going to, there goes my dog. Hang on. Dog's gone. Okay, we can continue on. So from here what we would do is take and lace our cords into the other side of our buckle. Now I'm going to show you a different way than what most people do on this. What I do is I take the cord on the right and I go from the top through the bottom, like so. Then I take the cord on the left and I go the opposite direction. I go from the bottom to the top through my buckle. And then I pull it tight. And then it looks like that. So I got the pink going from the top to the bottom. I have the white going from the bottom to the top. What this does is it allows the cords to the first knot in the cords to lay right, as opposed to leaving a pretty nasty little bump. If you've ever done it the other way, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now what this does from here is we start with the one going from the bottom, for the top to the bottom, and we make our loop with it. And that's how we start. And it's going over the core. The core are the two cords in the middle, right? And then I'm going to take my other cord, I'm going to go over the pink, behind the core, and through the loop. And pull it all the way through, and then tie. And just make sure your cord doesn't sort of flop over onto the other side. Make sure they stay the way they're supposed to. And now if you look at that, you've got a nice smooth transition between the buckle and the start. You don't have some big nasty bump on one side, like if you'd have done it the other way. Okay, so from here, since we led with the pink over the top, we're going to lead with the pink again. And actually through the whole rest of the bracelet, we're always going to lead with the pink on the top and the white going over the pink, behind the core, and through the hole. And then we pull tight. And there we've started our first full stitch of our bracelet. We want to make sure that this is fairly tight, right? And that everything here is nice and neat. And then we can really start going. So once again, I start with the pink, I go over the core and make a loop. I take the white, I go over the pink, behind the core, and through the loop we created with the pink, and tighten up. Alright? Do it again. Start with the pink, go over the core. I take the white, I go over the pink, behind the core, and through the loop. And we pull tight. Now what I'm watching for is consistency. I'm making sure that when I tie my cobra stitches that I'm pulling about the same amount of force each time. And I'm also looking to make sure that the loops are about the same size. That's what makes a really professional looking bracelet. And that's what comes over time. You may not get it the first time, but through practice you will. So I'm going to go ahead and get cranking on this. I'll go kind of fast. So, after tying thousands of bracelets, I pretty much got this down. And you'll get better with time, you just got to keep practicing. You can notice how the jig really helps out by keeping everything straight, so we can really focus in on making the bracelet uniform and tight. We're just going to go right along, creating our cobra stitch, remembering that we always lead with the pink and follow with the white. Lead with the pink and follow with the white. Now if you're really new at this, you may want to learn like a little saying, and it's over, and then over, under, and through. If you say that over and over again, you'll get it. Over, over, under, and through. And that's the pattern you're doing. And you build muscle memory over time, and then you get it to where this kind of just flows very easily. Eventually you should be able to get to a point where you're making a bracelet in about 5 minutes with this sort of 2-color standard weave. Just going back and forth. Really simple. Remember, it's over, over, under, and through. Over, over, under, and through. That's all it is, just back and forth. Now here's a little piece of trivia for you. The cobra stitch is basically square knots that you're tying around a core. That's all they are. It's one of the simplest knots we do. We do them all the time. Like when you tie your shoe, a bow is basically a square knot. Now if you noticed right there, I went right over that seam with no problem. It's not going to create a lump or anything, but it is now inside the cobra stitch right there. It's locked in. If that were to break, it would still hold. Alright, so I'm going to finish this up here. Now if you notice, there's just enough room to do one more stitch. Right? And there we go. Alright, at this point, if you notice, we got about a foot left on each side. It's about what you need to tie the bracelet. That's going to be your excess. We'll put the jig away. We won't need that anymore. Now if you look at the bracelet, you'll notice the knots are all nice and consistent. There's an even pattern going on both sides. That's what you're striving for when you're making your bracelet. Okay, so at this point, what we would do is we have to trim the ends. So what I do is I take out my cutters and I cut back about 1/8 of an inch away, leaving about 1/8 inch of cord exposed. Now I'm going to melt that into a mushroom, and then that'll keep this thing from coming apart. Like I said, you need about 1/8 of an inch. Now I take my lighter, and what I do is I start my flame away from the bracelet first, especially when you're dealing with bright solid colors like whites and pinks. It's real easy to put the flame into the bracelet and make a burn mark. And that basically, to me, would ruin the bracelet. You'd have to do it all over again. So what I do is I start the flame outside, away from the bracelet, and then I move the bracelet and the flame together slowly. And I start to form and melt it. And then when I do this for a few seconds, and I see it's nice and melted, I push it into the lighter, and I make my mushroom. Just like that. Come over to the other side, do the same thing, start the flame away, move the bracelet into it slowly, get it nice and melted, and then push it into the side of the lighter to make my mushroom. That's all you have to do. Now, if you're using dark colors, especially like black, the core is made up of white nylon. And sometimes that'll create a white spot in the center of this. And what I do is I get a Sharpie out like this one, and I'll go ahead and touch it up and make that white inner core black so it doesn't show. And that's just like a little finishing touch you can do to make your bracelets look that much better. Right? Now what I do is I kind of feel this, make sure it's cool enough to wear. I put it together like that, and there we have a white and pink paracord bracelet. I could take this one off. If you notice, Lark's head looks good, it's nice and tight. If you look at this end, it's nice and flat, looks good. I put it on, and there we go. Very nice, well put together paracord bracelet. Now from here you could experiment with that you could try doing a 3-color, where you lace in another color, or put on a charm or a medallion like that one. Or you could try some of the other numerous weaves. But that's how you put together a Solomon bracelet. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it. And as much as I've enjoyed making it for you and showing you how to do it. Once again, I'm Bart with eXtremePara.com. This is our mini jig. This is a bracelet. We have Jess behind the camera. And that's it. So I'm going to say so long. And hopefully we'll see you on the next video.